I do have something I need to disclose before we get into the meat and potatoes of this cigar and episode. Mike, I'm back on my bullshit.
Back on your bullshit?
Yes.
Welcome to Nice Ashes. Join hosts Mike and Nate for cigars and culture. Let's go beyond the smoke.
What are we smoking today, Mike?
We are smoking a cigar that we have had in the humidor since before the show began.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, I've had this in my humidor, and Nate's had it in his now for several years, but I've had these for a long time.
Yep.
And this is the Hoyo De Monterrey Excalibur Dark Knight Toro.
Yes. Have you smoked a Dark Knight before, Mike?
I have smoked a Dark Knight before. This is out of my personal collection.
So have I. Yeah, but I've only ever smoked one of them, and I remember liking it a crazy amount. And I might have, the first time I smoked it might have been with you, Mike, before we even started doing the show.
Possibly. Hopefully this doesn't turn into a Whiskey Row situation. But
yeah, hopefully not.
Yeah. For those who are new to the show, for the first season or so, we basically just smoked cigars I already had in my humidor. to empty it out.
I thought you were talking about the one where I was like, oh, I love this Whiskey Row cigar, and I gave it to you, and then we smoked it, and I was like, I don't like it as much as I remember liking it. Because that
I was going to let you tell
on,
that story.
Yeah, early on in the cigar smoking journey where it was good when you don't know what you're doing, but less good when
I had another Whiskey Row a couple days ago, and it was fine, but it was only adequate. It wasn't as good as I remember.
I do have something I need to disclose before we get into the meat and potatoes of this cigar and episode. Mike, I'm back on my bullshit.
Back on your bullshit?
Yes, I am pairing this cigar with a Simpler Times lager beer from Trader Joe's.
Those are good beers.
They're good.
I like those beers.
Yeah. I haven't had one for so long. And it felt like there was a good stretch of the show where I was like, okay, I'm pairing it with the Simpler Times. And that was before you even tried one. And you're like, what is it with these? I got to try them. And I got some more of them. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing again, everybody.
There we go. I guess I'm also back on my bullshit because I'm pairing mine with a little bit of Crown Royal and ice water. So that's kind of been, it's not a Guinness. It's not a Guinness.
There you go. Oh, that's a good first puff.
Yeah. Damn good cigar.
So this episode is going to be all silence as Mike and I just enjoy the cigar.
We'll moan and groan like the what are they called? The Hodgkin twins. They're YouTubers.
Yeah.
They, I don't know if you've ever seen those guys, but they do these weird videos about people acting inappropriately in public and then saying usually negative racist things.
Sure. Yes. Well, with moaning and groaning, if that's your jam, stay tuned for next week where we have the first ever Nice Ashes ASMR.
Oh, yes. Hopefully you like the sounds of cheek noises.
Yes. Tooth sucking. It's calming. It's calming to me. Okay. First couple puffs are pretty much how I remember. There's some spice, but it's a much fuller flavor than just spice. And nutty, maybe. I don't know if nutty is the right word, Mike. Flavor descriptor.
I would say like oak, like a acorn,
which is a nut.
Yeah, which is a nut, but it's like that smoothness. You know, like an acorn pancake where it's like that nutty, but it's still smooth. And like you say, it's got that pepper and spice
with a glass of dandelion tea. For all you outdoorsmen.
That's right.
Yes, indeed. I'm excited. I remember really liking this cigar. One of the few cigars that made it to my cigar notes of cigars that I liked from the early days.
There we go. I was always a big fan of the Hoyo De Monterrey Presidentes, the Excalibur Presidentes.
Sure.
I haven't had one in a long time. I think I have one in my humidor left, and I don't know how old that is, but it's probably very old, like a decade or more old.
Well, I can go get a brand new one, and we can do the old versus new.
We could definitely do that. We could definitely do that. I don't even know what they cost anymore.
Doesn't matter for the show.
That's true.
For the show. I say that with the same desire, the same willingness to do almost whatever for the show as the politicians say, for the children. Pass this housing bill with universal health care attached for the children. even though it's not universal health care. But
pass this bill where we're going to sell 3 million acres of public land
for the
children.
You like
we're
children,
going to use the money
you?
from the sales to build low-income housing.
You like children, don't you? They don't earn a whole lot. They need the housing.
Just what rural Idaho needs, the low-income housing.
Yes. So, Mike, are you excited about the episode topic?
Well, Nate, I remember discussing it before the show, and you hadn't decided what we were going to talk about yet.
Oh, that's right. I gave you a choice,
what are we talking about?
You abstained from voting, and now you get what you get. We're going to go back, Mike. We're going to go back in time to a year shortly before either of us were born. We're going back to 1983. Tampa, Florida.
Crazy times in Tampa, Florida in 1983.
It was for 2 people, for sure. We're going to talk about the 1983 murder of Barbara Grams. This is back in August 1983, and Tampa, they got themselves some rising crime. Of course, it's hot and humid because it's fucking Florida in August. Do you remember ever hearing anything about the murder of Barbara Grams?
I do not. Is she the daughter of Golden?
Perhaps. Teddy. I think Teddy was her grandfather. Teddy Grams, and then Golden Grams was her dad.
No,
sorry,
I have no idea.
Is this part of Barbara?
Of Barbara, yes. Is this part of the coke craze that occurred in Florida around that time?
I don't think so.
Oh, too bad.
Well, maybe. I don't know. But here's what we got going on. Is 19-year-old Barbara Grams, who recently graduated high school, and she worked at the mall. She was walking home late one night after her shift, and she never made it home that night. Her body was discovered the next morning behind a dentist's office. She had been beaten, raped, and murdered, and the attack shocked the community, as it would, and ignited a fast-moving police investigation. And there was some pretty crazy, intense pressure for the police to solve the case quickly, politically, and publicly. The fear and outrage in the community were high, and the local police needed a suspect to calm the community down. They needed to find somebody to take the blame for this. Okay, so we're setting this up.
Hell yeah.
Okay. In the early 1980s, Tampa experienced a spike in violent crime, particularly in assaults and homicides. The number of young white women walking home from work fit into a pattern of rising public fear about safety in the city. And again, this is the early 80s, so it's probably not localized just to Tampa. But again, you've got, what's happening politically in America is, 10 to 20 years previously, the women had women's liberation. They're allowed to work out of the home and do more things, and it's a lot more acceptable for them to do that. So now you've got younger women taking on jobs outside of the house, walking, and sometimes late night shifts, walking home in the dark, and things like that. And so police departments were under a lot of pressure from the public and elected officials to crack down and show results to keep these women safe in public.
Yes.
Yeah. Barbara Grams, she was 19 years old, a recent high school graduate. She had no criminal background, and she was attacked while doing something routine, which, that's what people in communities do. They do routine things all the time. She was walking home from work. Her case quickly received a lot of local media coverage, painting her as an innocent victim and fueling the outrage of the community and police and everybody. It was a very brutal crime. Rape, beating, and murder. And that helped play into the public's shock and anger. The police culture at the time was clear the case, so law enforcement success was often measured by clearance rates, which means to you and I the number of cases that are solved. So they didn't want this to show up on unsolved mysteries. Solving high-profile murders helped maintain the public trust, boost officer reputations, and secure political support for budgets and leadership roles. And like you said, they were likely also dealing with cocaine influx into the Florida area. That's not part of this story or the topic of the episode, but again, it's not police departments and communities aren't usually dealing with just one exacerbating issue. And so basically all of this led to incentivize quick arrests over careful investigations, which is going to come into play later, Mike.
What could go wrong? What could go wrong?
Absolutely nothing. There was political and institutional pressure, so prosecutors and police chiefs were under political pressure to show that the justice system was effective, that it worked. And in many cities during this time, tough on crime politics were ascendant, especially in the southern parts of the country. An unsolved case of this magnitude, particularly with the violent nature of the crime, could lead to community unrest, criticism of leadership, and even electoral consequences. I mean, we saw what happened with George George Floyd in Minneapolis not that long ago. And that was also potentially on the table, at least elected officials and the police thought with this case. But I feel like the trust of police officers community-wide was higher like in the 80s and 90s and has kind of steadily decreased. But I might be off on that. I don't know. I was a kid, so.
Yeah, I've also thought about that when you look at a movie like Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah.
The gag of the joke is that there's this corrupt sheriff who's tracking down these guys and doing crazy shit, right? Like the sheriff is hyper corrupt, and it's known. Like everybody was aware how corrupt the police were.
Yeah.
I just don't think that it was in the cultural zeitgeist how bad it was. They didn't have the internet.
Sure.
Like people were aware that it was a problem, but they weren't aware how prevalent it was and universal it was across the whole planet, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, and one bad cop back then without the social media is one bad cop. But with social media, you have one bad cop from how many different communities? And then you have several bad cops, right? So, little different.
Right. You wouldn't know about the bad cop that was a county over or whatever.
No,
you
not
just
necessarily.
know about your local bad cop.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Also, this is the 1980s, so we're not going all CSI on this. They didn't have the same forensic technology we currently have. They didn't have DNA testing necessarily or a modern forensic database. And investigators leaned heavily on circumstantial evidence and expert forensic testimony at the time. They didn't have computers and databases and things like that weren't quite there yet to be widespread in these different communities. I mean, they might have had a forensic lab maybe at the state, but not in every single community. So basically, all of this led to create a perfect storm: urgency to close the case, flawed tools, and that ends with a high potential for a wrongful conviction. All right, section 2, we're going to go into the investigation and the trial. So they found a suspect. The investigators claimed that a bite mark was found on Barbara's cheek. Somehow, Robert DuBoise, his name came up in a vague tip, possibly for just being in the area. He was taken into custody, or maybe not custody, but he was taken in and had a wax mold made of his teeth. And a forensic odontologist claimed that his mold matched the bite.
That would be very interesting to prove. That would have to be a hell of a bite mark.
You know what? Not only that, but this odontologist also was part of another big case around the same time. Bite mark analysis, however, was never based on validated science, but at the time, back in the 80s, was widely accepted in courtrooms across America. The dentist used subjective interpretation, not any rigorous methodology. There was a jailhouse informant, so a man named Leo Boatman, who was already in custody, claimed that DuBoise confessed to the murder while they were jailed together. There was no recording, no written note, or no other witnesses to his supposed confession. Just Boatman's word, likely which was given in exchange for a lighter sentence. During the trial, the prosecutors leaned heavily on the bite mark testimony from Dr. Richard Souveron. He's the same man who testified in the Ted Bundy case. He played a key role in the 1979 trial of Ted Bundy, specifically in the Chi Omega sorority murders at Florida State University, and his testimony was groundbreaking at the time, heavily publicized because it was one of the first times bite mark evidence was used to help convict a defendant in a major U.S. trial. And they also relied on the confession from Boatman, which was not substantiated by anybody but Boatman. But there was no physical evidence that tied DuBoise to the crime. There were no fingerprints, no semen match, and no hair or blood. The jury found him guilty and he was sentenced to death, which was later commuted to life without parole. Any questions so far, Mike?
No questions. I have a comment.
Yes.
It doesn't seem like this is a lot of evidence. I think I know where this is going, Nate.
Okay. It is not a lot of evidence, Mike, and that's why I wanted to set the stage about the 1980s Tampa area.
I have a second question.
Oh, okay.
Was the guy, Mr. Boatman, was that the guy who got convicted?
Mr. Boatman was the person who was already previously in jail.
Oh, okay.
And claimed that Robert DuBoise, testified or confessed to
Was this gentleman of a tan complexion by any... By any chance?
No, I don't believe so.
No, he wasn't.
No,
okay.
There's pictures of him.
I was just wondering.
You can look him up. And I'll tell you where to look him up at the end of the episode here.
Florida has some interesting politics in the past, so that's why I ask.
Yes. Yes, it does, and even in present day. But the point is that this is not all doom and gloom, everybody. This is going to be a redemption story. Not to, spoiler alert. Dr. Richard Savoyron was the forensic odontologist. Bite mark expert, I guess, is what that means. It's fucking stupid. And he testified in Robert DuBoise' trial and in Ted Bundy's trial, and his bite mark analysis was central to the wrongful conviction. So they had just, 2 years or 4 years previously convicted Ted Bundy. And this bite mark expert played a part in that. So he's kind of riding high on, being a popular figure in courthouses, right? Because he pioneered this bite mark analysis. But at trial, Dr. Suvairan told the jury that the injury on Barbara Graham's cheek was a human bite mark and that it matched the bite mold taken from Robert DuBoise, meaning that DuBoise was the person who bit the victim, which prosecutors argued linked him to the rape and murder. So I guess they weren't entertaining the possibility that Robert was hungry, bit Barbara, and ran off, and then somebody else raped and murdered her.
Makes sense.
Well, yeah. I mean, how many people go around biting people? But there were specific claims that he made in his testimony. He claimed that the mark had sufficient detail to identify a unique dental pattern. He asserted that the bite mark matched DuBois' dental mold with a high degree of certainty. He dismissed the idea that another person could have made the mark, suggesting it was a match to DuBois. The testimony had enormous weight, despite the fact that it seems pretty flimsy to you or I, Mike, because Savaron was already famous for testifying against Ted Bundy, and that was the first case where bite mark evidence helped convict someone, and the jury likely trusted his credentials and believed the science was solid. So if you're not a bite mark expert and somebody comes in and says this bite mark matches this person's mouth, I did a wax mold and this and that and the other thing, how would you know as a regular person that's not a bite mark expert?
Right. That's a reasonable miscarriage of justice, as strange as that sounds.
Yeah, that is correct. I mean, it makes sense. Like you can understand why the jury would believe him. However, nowadays, a bite mark analysis is considered junk science. So multiple scientific bodies, the National Academy of Science in 2009, the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology in 2016, concluded that there is no scientific basis to claim bite marks are unique. No studies have proven that human skin can preserve a bite mark reliably, and analysts often disagree with each other and even with themselves upon reevaluation. Dr. Suvairan himself admitted error. In 2020, after DuBoise was exonerated, so I told you, the redemption story, Suvairan publicly stated, "I was wrong." He acknowledged that the mark on Barbara Graham's was not a bite mark at all, and he admitted that the science did not support with the certainty that he testified in the 1980s. And Suvairan's bite mark analysis has been linked to at least 2 wrongful convictions, including DuBoise's. His once celebrated role in the Bundy trial led to an uncritical spread of bite mark testimony nationwide. So he basically kicked off a whole junk science slew of testimony. Robert DuBoise's conviction was directly based on Suvairan's testimony, and Suvairan's fall from grace is symbolic of the larger failure of forensic odontology in the United States justice system, and he now speaks more cautiously about forensic certainty. But for exonerees like DuBoise, the damage was already done. So remember, DuBoise was convicted with death penalty in the 80s, which was then later changed to life without parole.
Yeah, he didn't get out of jail until nearly 40 years later.
Yes. So, science reveals the truth. In the early 2000s, forensic scientists began to question the validity of bite mark evidence. The National Academy of Sciences later called it without scientific foundation, and there were several other wrongful convictions based on bite mark evidence that came to light, including those of Keith Harward and Ray Crone. So, how did DuBoise get out of prison? In 2018, DuBoise wrote to the Innocence Project. Simultaneously, Hillsborough County State Attorney Andrew Warren had launched a conviction review unit to re-examine old cases with possible errors. So the Innocence Project and CRU, the Conviction Review Unit, joined forces to investigate. And the breakthrough came with DNA. And remember, they didn't have a DNA database back in the 80s. But the medical examiner's office found preserved DNA evidence that had been thought lost. So they found it. They found DNA that they thought they had misplaced. The semen on the victim's body was tested again using modern DNA methods. and the results were DuBoise was excluded. He was not the source of the semen. The DNA matched 2 other men, one of whom was already incarcerated for a similar sexual assault.
How could it have matched 2 other men with any level of certainty?
I don't know, man. I'm not a spermologist.
I'm just saying, like, if it matches 2 other guys.
Obviously, there were 2 different semens on her, right?
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So there's 2 different, I understand now.
Yeah. It wasn't like, oh, this could be one of 2 people. No, it was 2 people that raped and beat and killed her.
Got it.
Yeah. I didn't know if you were like, how did they preserve it so that they could test it, 40 years later, 50 years later.
No, I was just like, they found 2 people. What do you mean 2 people?
yes. Mike with the one-on-one missionary style going on in his brain. And
I like my rapes and murders one-on-one.
Yes. A fair shot for everybody. I mean, not something to make light of for sure, especially with a wrongful conviction and a death. But again, a little levity never hurt anybody, as far as I know. That could be junk science, just like bite mark, whatever the fuck. Okay, so the legal reversal in August 2020, after 37 years, DuBoise was freed from prison. A month later, in September 2020, a judge officially vacated his conviction and fully exonerated him. Robert's reaction, he's done interviews. DuBoise said, every day you wake up thinking, is this the day they realize they made a mistake? So that's 37 years in prison. He walked out of prison with no money, no home, and no life experience in the outside world since 1983.
And straight into COVID. That must have been great.
He was 55 years old at the time of his release. The prosecutor's office held a press conference to acknowledge the mistake, and State Attorney Andrew Warren said this should never have happened. The system failed.
How much money did they give him?
I'm not sure if I have that here, but we can certainly get that information before the episode is over. So we've got aftermath and reflection. So life after exoneration, DuBoise has publicly spoken about the pain of the lost time. He had never used the internet, cell phones, or modern banking. But despite all of this, he's approached it all with humility, saying he didn't want bitterness to define him. Because that's the thing, right? 37 years of your life stolen from you, you could be a very bitter man. There is a bit of legal compensation. So as of 2023, so, I mean, this is all fairly recent, even though the crime was so long ago. DuBoise filed a lawsuit for damages, but Florida is notoriously difficult on compensation. Many exonerees get nothing. A bill was introduced in the Florida legislature to compensate him specifically, but it stalled. The bigger picture is that over 30 people have been exonerated in Florida through DNA evidence. Cases like DuBoise have led to banning of bite mark evidence in some jurisdictions, stricter scrutiny of jailhouse informants, because remember, Boatman said that Robert confided in him, and formation of the CRUs, the units around the country, the Conviction Review Unit.
Yeah, this is an off topic. It's related.
Oh, sure, yeah.
When these guys get exonerated for these horrific crimes, they usually have spent a long time in prison.
Yeah.
And I don't think they deserve crazy, huge amounts of money. But I'm going to define that by saying I think that if you spent, let's say, 20 years in prison, you should probably get $5 million. And that guy is in 37 years in prison. He should probably get $5 million, like enough to where he never needs to work and he can retire to a condo in a community. He should not have to work, and he should be able to have enough money as a nest egg to not worry financially for the end of his days, as long as he is living responsibly. And they should probably provide them with some additional assistance to help them handle their situation.
Well, yeah, they should offer that. They should give them money because, I mean, that's 37 years, right? So how much is that in lost wages, lost assets you could have built for yourself? I mean, the 80s, you could have bought a house for lunch money, basically. Well, let's not even get into, because he's 55 years old when he gets released. So that's what, basically, I don't know if he did or didn't want to have a family, but basically at that age, you're getting to that point where, and I know men can have kids a lot longer, but they're a lot older than women can in some cases. But again, like when you're 55, most people aren't thinking about starting a family. So I don't know if that was ever something he wanted to do, but basically this wrongful conviction with this shoddy bite mark evidence basically stole his entire life from him. I mean, sure, he's still got, maybe 20, 30 years left given average male lifespans, right? And he likely wasn't...
Right, with no foundation. There's no foundation.
But he has nothing.
Like,
he doesn't have a house.
pension.
He doesn't have a pension. He doesn't have a job. He doesn't have any marketable skills. He doesn't have any assets, equity. He doesn't have any of that stuff. So it's not just like, whoops, it's our bad. Good luck. Like, no, he's not 20 years old. He can't go and do things. I mean, they should give him a waiver and he can go to any university he wants to study anything he wants to, right? There's some stories I read where his attorney gave him a cell phone and started texting him short text messages at first to get him like eased into texting, because that's a whole phenomenon that if you weren't there at the start of it, it's tough to get into potentially, because in the 80s you didn't have computers everywhere.
For sure. If people didn't do their due diligence, it's hard to get into the smartphone now. If if you weren't early in as an early adopter, it can be very intimidating, which I have very little sympathy for, but also it's a reality.
Well, yeah. I mean, it is what it is. It's one of those things. You don't necessarily need technology and a cell phone for everything. But again, if you want to be competitive in today's world, you kind of have to know how to use them.
Well, yeah. Could you imagine hiring a new employee that didn't know how to use a smartphone efficiently? That'd be tough. That'd be a tough sale. It'd be difficult. Depending on your job. It'd be difficult.
Well, for sure. I mean, instant communication is nice for friends and family, but for work, it kind of sucks. Robert DuBoise has said, "You can't hate the world. If you do that, you're still in prison." So again, this is like a story where he has every right to be bitter and to be angry. And it definitely seems like he's trying to make the best of it. Because you could look at it two ways. You could look at it, 37 years of my life were stolen from me. But now that he's out, you can say, I've been given a new chance. Like, all of my life wasn't stolen from me. Only 37 years of it was, right?
Right. Like, starting at 18.
Yeah, and I know you can read books and get some schooling and stuff in prisons. I don't know what his circumstances were, of course, but, it's not like you couldn't better yourself in there as well. Potentially. And the Innocence Project attorney says that Robert's story is tragic and avoidable. The system is only as good as its willingness to admit when it is wrong.
Very true. A lot of these Innocence Project stories are very sad. And the pushback that they get is even more sad to me.
Yeah.
Because it's a miscarriage of justice, and our justice system needs to be as reputable as possible for our society to function.
Needs to be held to a higher standard, And there's people out there that I guess you have kind of two different schools of thought on this, or there might be two. I mean, there's probably more than two, but probably the two big ones are we should convict more than necessary so that we make sure we keep bad people off the streets. And then you've got people that say we should convict less than necessary, even if it means more bad people are on the streets because we don't want to convict the wrong person. Again, those likely aren't the only two viewpoints on it, but those are kind of the two extremes, perhaps. I mean, we should only convict those that are worthy of conviction, right? But there's a lot of stories in American media, for sure, movies and otherwise, right, where the bad guy gets off. Like, we saw them do it earlier in the movie, they get off, and then it has to be some kind of like vigilante justice, right? Like, that's a big movie trope for sure in American culture.
Oh, for sure. And well, we've talked about this before. The country was set up to make convictions very difficult. And as we've become a stronger and stronger country, so to speak, our attitudes about it have changed, and culturally it's very punish the wrongdoer, and the good guy sometimes has to do bad things, and this nonsense that is what leads to revolution, right? If your good guys are doing bad things, they're not good guys, they're bad guys. So
yes.
Do you want to do a cigar check, Nate?
I do, Mike. I'm liking it a lot so far.
I agree. This is exactly what a fine cigar should be. It has a lot of subtle notes. It's full-bodied, meaning it's got that spicy top note with that nuttiness and a full flavor profile. Very pleasant, very smooth. The smoke is cool.
Yep.
Not a lot to complain about on my end, that's
and
for
it's
sure.
got a decent nicotine content, for sure.
For sure.
Definitely a really good cigar. I remember liking it the very first time I smoked it. I think this is the second time I've ever smoked one, and I'm glad that my memory was not a false memory, let's say, with like the Whiskey Row. So yeah, I'm pretty happy. Pretty happy right now.
Oh yeah. I've never had a bad Hoyo.
No.
I'm sure that I'll find one, but...
Well, we might find one that's not to our taste profiles, but I don't know that we'd find potentially we could find a bad one. We've had bad ones from big brands before. Usually they're off-label ones, though.
Very true.
All right, I'm going to talk a little bit now about the Innocence Project and what it is and things like that, because I think it's important. You know, with the prevalence of wrongful convictions, and I don't have stats on how many people are wrongfully convicted, right? You've got people who say that they're wrongfully convicted but might be guilty and whatnot. So, but the Innocence Project is a nonprofit legal organization. It was founded in 1992 by Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld at the Benjamin N. Cardozo School of Law in New York City. And its mission is to exonerate the wrongly convicted through DNA testing and to reform the criminal justice system to prevent future injustices. So why that might be important is, you know, if you or a loved one is wrongfully convicted or believe you're wrongfully convicted, or they are, you can certainly reach out to them. They're a nonprofit organization, and we'll look at things like that. And they focus on DNA exoneration. So they specialize in cases where post-conviction DNA testing can prove a person's innocence. And I think DuBoise case is kind of it's kind of like the perfect example case for what they do, right? They didn't really have DNA testing back then. They thought they misplaced the DNA evidence. They thought bite mark testimony was valid, and they found out, nope, there's still DNA evidence. We can run it through the database. They found the two people that were guilty of the crime, and got Robert out of prison. As of 2024, DNA evidence has helped the Innocence Project exonerate over 200 people, many of whom served decades in prison, and some of those were on death row. They want to do criminal justice reform by fixing the root causes of wrongful convictions, including eyewitness misidentification, false confessions, junk science, which includes, from earlier, bite mark analysis, prosecutorial misconduct, ineffective defense. So even if your defense attorney was incompetent or ineffective, they'll go back and kind of review things. I guess that's like the good thing about the American system, and the bad thing about the American system is you can have so many appeals. Even if you're guilty, you're entitled to appeals, right?
Well, absolutely, and that's a strength because it's my understanding that your appeals can go so far without new evidence. And then you gain appeals as new evidence arrives. So even if you run out of appeals, you can still get more if technology changes. And you get reviews before your appeal, which is where something like the Innocence Project shines, because a lot of these guys are out of appeals. These guys are on death row.
Oh, yeah,
and,
for sure.
Most of the cases there is DNA, but it wasn't used because of technology limitations.
Yeah. Or they misplaced it and wasn't found until later.
Yeah, exactly. Or like the bite mark evidence was thought to be valuable information, and it turned out to be not.
Yep.
So
yeah, and I say like for better or worse, because the American legal system is kind of a juggernaut of very expensive everything, and
it's shockingly expensive.
And so sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's used as like a postponement technique by those that are actually guilty. But again, like with wrongful convictions, and they've since 1992, right? 92 was it? Yeah, they've exonerated over 200 people since 1992. And you can only imagine those don't happen quickly. So, I mean, that's a pretty big number in my opinion. Again, I'm not a lawyer and I don't know the total convictions per year and everything like that, but it's got to take quite a bit of paperwork and other things to exonerate somebody from death row, for sure.
Absolutely. And it has to come to their attention, and they don't have unlimited resources by any means. So.
Oh, yeah. No, of course not. I mean, you can easily say, well, people shouldn't have appeals. They were proven guilty. That should be the end of it. But we've got on record over 200 from the Innocence Project alone. And there's other divisions that review these things from time to time periodically, and sometimes they find them without the Innocence Project being involved and overturn convictions and things, right? So it's not like they're the only ones doing it, but there's somebody you can definitely reach out to for help. But if we have that many people being wrongfully convicted and exonerated later on, then even if I'm being a little critical of, well, they shouldn't have so many appeals, it makes me kind of stop and say, maybe they should have more appeals even, I don't know. I mean, it would definitely be kind of on a case-by-case basis for sure, but something like a bite mark where the guy comes out later and says, no, it wasn't even a bite mark. Well, what were you doing then? Just yanking everybody's fucking chain and putting some poor sap in prison for 37 years? Like, Robert DuBoise should go after that guy. That's what he should do.
Well, and that's hard too, because I'm sure that guy was a legitimate actor. He didn't think that he was lying at the time.
Well,
Understanding of reality changes. So
that's true, but I don't know how he could say it was a bite mark so convincingly in the 80s and then in the 2000s say it wasn't a bite mark at all. You're a bite mark specialist. You should know if it is or is not a bite mark.
sounds like that specialty isn't that special.
Well, yeah. Yeah, he's a water diviner. Here's a stick. Go find me some water.
Have you ever seen that done?
No.
I have. I've actually done it.
Oh,
And it didn't
okay.
work for me
Sure.
at all. But other guys, I've seen them do it, and we marked it for fun, waiting for the locator, like the real locator, right? Like we're wasting time by doing this.
Oh,
But it's either this or stand around and smoke and joke. So what we're doing is
smoke a cigar and divine some water. I mean, yeah. Go for it.
exactly. What we're doing is we're trying to find these water pipes and junk like that. It's like, oh yeah, we'll do the sticks. Of course, we know where it starts and where it ends. So. It gets some pretty good odds.
Well, like the Ouija board, right?
Yeah, it's like, pretty good odds. And it's worked. It's always worked every time I've seen it.
Yeah.
With somebody who believes they can do it.
Sure.
And I don't know exactly what that's about, but.
Well, I don't know, man. The mind is a crazy thing sometimes, for sure. And I'm willing to allow for the possibility that there might be some kind of innate skill in that. Like, I don't think if you believe you can fly, you can jump off of a building and fly. You know what I mean? But crazier things have been done and documented. Parachuters have had their chutes failed open and they've survived a crazy fall from a crazy height. And so, yeah, sure. If you believe you can find water and it works for you even 70% of the time, I mean, that's a crazy statistic for sure.
Well, it's better than zero. I know that I can't do it. I grip the rod too hard, is what I was told.
I've heard that said about you, for sure. All right. The Innocence Project also advocates for legal changes at state and federal levels, including recording interrogations, improving forensic standards, and compensation for the exonerees. I mean, that's just, in a sense, with how much money the legal system brings in, or all the money that's spent on it, the fact that in Florida, most of the exonerees don't receive anything, and I don't know about other states, because the specific case we're talking about happened in Florida, but the fact that they don't receive anything, it's mind-boggling to me. I mean, even a year, even if you're in there a year, there should be some sort of compensation. Like, take the median of the age demographic of the person and take the median income for that group and just give them that. Like what, $50,000?
Oh, so you're lowballing.
Right?
I would say if you spend a year or two in prison and you're released and it was shown you didn't do it, you should get at least $500,000. Like enough for you to be able to rebuild your life.
Well, man.
Because now everything you had before was destroyed. Now you need to rebuild. You might have lost a house. You might have got kicked out of college. You might have, lost your pension. You might have, there's a lot of factors, and you need money to be able to rebuild, and a lot of it.
I want to pay them more. I'm saying that Florida gives them zero, and I'm saying, look.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Look, I mean, what is 50 grand? What is 50 grand in the grand scheme of fucking Florida's budget?
Well, what's $5 million for a guy who was in jail for 40 years?
Well, exactly.
Or
I mean, I'm not trying to argue with you.
Too much, but.
I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just trying to say, like, $0. Like, for 1 year, they should at least have whatever their income could have been. At least at the
Zero's a problem.
Minimum. At the bare minimum, at least what their income should have been or could have been, right?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, the whole point is you don't want people to game the system, right? So, I want to be wrongfully convicted of something so I can get $5 million. Not that, I mean, some people would do that. I mean, I've seen Florida Man. I know what Florida Man is capable of, right? Florida Man fought off like 2 squads of policemen while masturbating high on meth or something. So, I know what Florida Man can do, according to the news stories.
I mean, I saw a news report about a guy who raped a gator in the middle of the street, so...
Yeah, Florida Man is crazy. I'm just saying, I don't want to open it up to necessarily where people try and do this as a way to make money, right? And that's not really what we're talking about. But the fact that the compensation for an exoneree in Florida is zero is a problem. That's a problem. I mean, Florida should be disincentivized. Any court in the country should be disincentivized to wrongfully convicting someone.
I agree.
And if that's $1 million per year that they're wrongfully imprisoned, then it's $1 million per year that they're wrongfully imprisoned. Like whatever it is. I mean, there's got to be some kind of consequence. You know, if you or I wrongfully do something, there's a consequence for you or I. If the court system does something wrongfully, there's not a consequence for them. I mean, sometimes it's like re-election, but certain judges aren't elected, are they, Mike?
No, many judges are appointed, and those that are elected usually run unopposed. So
yeah, because you have to have like crazy skills or whatever references to do that kind of thing. The Innocence Project also does public education, so they try to raise awareness through documentaries, public campaigns, partnerships with universities, and media outreach. Their work's been featured in series like The Innocence Files on Netflix and Making a Murderer. Over 375 people in the United States have been exonerated through DNA evidence, and the Innocence Project has been involved with, as we said, 200 of those, which is a significant portion. The Innocence Project's work has exposed flaws in forensic science and led to overturning of laws that allowed dubious testimony and coercive tactics. In some states, their efforts have led to the abolition of the death penalty and major reforms to conviction review units. So, I mean, that's the thing, is like the death penalty is always a hot topic in the States here, in the United States. I'm sure everywhere else, too. I don't know how many other countries have it. There's a fuck ton of countries. Not many. So
we're one of the last in the Western world to still have the death penalty. And it's kind of viewed as backwards amongst civilized peoples. I wanted to talk about it with you, so I'm glad it came up. Yeah. I am against the death penalty for two reasons. Okay. I'm not morally opposed to the death penalty. That's not the issue. One is, my understanding is that housing an inmate is cheaper than having them go through the appeals process to get the death penalty, because they have to run out of appeals. If you keep somebody in jail for a crime, they run out of appeals very quickly if there's no new evidence. But if you have the death penalty, they can appeal all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States. So they can drag it out, which is why somebody on death row can be alive for 25 years constantly in court, because they can appeal and appeal and appeal. And the state pays for both sides in those cases. So it costs huge amounts of money. Where a standard murder conviction, you can appeal to the state level. It doesn't go to federal unless there's new evidence. It ends there. For the death penalty, it goes up to the federal courts, and you can go through all that system. So it costs a lot, court cost-wise. And your annual keeping somebody in prison, fairly stable. It costs a lot, but not as much as court costs do for the additional appeals. Second reason is somewhat moral, I suppose, but it's shit like the Innocence Project. Technology changes, understanding of facts change. Things that were good science turn out to not have been legitimate, and you shouldn't be executing people that aren't guilty, right? Like, that's how things should be.
Yeah, I guess, do you trust the state enough? Is the thing with the death penalty. I think there are certain crimes where the death penalty is certainly warranted, but again, that's if, beyond any shadow of a doubt, beyond any future evidence that could possibly come to light, right? Like there's no mistake. You know what I mean? So I think, and that's my kind of moral standing, right? Like there are some crimes and offenses that are so bad that I believe the death penalty morally to be warranted, but I don't know that I trust the state enough to trust their judgment of when it's appropriate, I guess, let's say.
Well, and to that point, right now there's a bit of a DUI crisis in the United States. As drinking goes down, DUIs are staying level, and it's because officers are arresting people for DUI with no alcohol in their system, and people are getting convicted of DUIs from prescription medication, their prescribed medication, and the evidence of their blood volume doesn't seem to matter a whole lot.
Okay.
Which is crazy, because you get people who are being prescribed shit like Adderall.
Yep.
Well, you can get high off Adderall, and they're getting pulled over, and the cops see their pill bottle, and they arrest them for being high on Adderall, and they do a blood test, and they're showed within normal levels, and they still get convicted.
Yep.
Tennessee right now has a major court case because there's like 200 to 600 people that are all suing them for wrongful DUI convictions from prescribed medication, and that's an issue. So if we have an issue with that, surely we have an issue at all levels of criminality. Has to be, right? Has to be.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I said, like, there are crimes that I believe the death penalty is warranted, but I don't know that I trust the state enough to take their word for it. Like, they gave Robert DuBoise the death penalty, which was later commuted to life without parole, but then it turned out he didn't do it at all. You know, and there's 375 people that have been exonerated that potentially, and I don't know if they were all on death row or, you know, some were, right? They said some were, but how many of those started out on death row or got commuted, the sentence commuted? We'd have to do like a deep dive into statistics for that. But I think, again, like that's kind of the issue is you've got some people that say, well, right, it's like with the terrorism thing, right? A lot of people after 9/11 said, let's kill them all and let God sort them out, right?
Which is crazy talk. That's crazy talk.
Exactly.
Modern times, like...
Well, it's crazy talk for any times, really, but specifically modern times for sure. But you've got people like that who think, oh, if you're even like a suspect in this thing, you know, like that's such a terrible crime, let's just kill them all and we'll figure it out later. And I don't think that's the way to do it. Like, I know that's not the way to do it. That's a dumb way to go about doing things.
Well, you're definitely going to cause a different set of problems by doing that.
Yeah.
Well, with the DUI thing, that's a problem. That's a huge problem.
Oh,
you can't be arresting people for DUI if they're not intoxicated.
Yeah.
It calls into question the whole system.
Yeah. I always had a problem, Mike, as long as we're talking about DUIs. It's not illegal in Minnesota, as far as I know, to ride a bicycle while drunk.
It is, in fact, illegal to drive a bicycle while intoxicated. I know that for a fact.
I think it depends on the city. It's not a statewide thing.
You can ride a horse intoxicated, but you cannot drive a lawnmower intoxicated. That's against the law for sure. And I'm pretty sure riding a bike intoxicated is against the law as well. Because I got pulled over many years ago riding a bike with a case of beer on my bike rack. And I had a conversation with a cop. Let's put it that way. He did not give me a breathalyzer. He didn't give a shit. But he was like, just be careful, you know?
All right. Well, here's the deal, Mike. In Minnesota, you cannot get a DUI on a bicycle.
Really?
In Minnesota law, you cannot be charged with driving under the influence on a bike because the DUI or DWI only applies to motor vehicles. It's not illegal under DWI statutes, but it's still dangerous and potentially illegal if it leads to other violations. But my big thing is even if it's illegal to ride a bike while drunk, the fact that they take your license, your driver's license, for riding a bicycle, which requires no driver's license to operate, it makes no sense to me. Do you know what I mean? Like, no, that doesn't make any sense. You don't need a license to ride a bicycle. So any bicycle-related drunk things, even if illegal, should have no bearing on your driver's license.
It's a mad world out there.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And you don't, like, I understand a lawnmower is a motor vehicle in a sense, but again, you don't need a driver's license to operate a lawnmower. So even if you're operating a lawnmower drunk, especially on your own property, it should have no bearing on your driver's license. You do not need a driver's license to operate a lawnmower. Nobody will ever require a driver's license, I hope, to operate a lawnmower. So even if you do that drunk and are convicted of doing it drunk, it should have no bearing on your driver's license. Should there be a penalty and whatever? Fine. Yeah, that's fine with me. But nothing to do with your driver's license. Your driver's license is not required to operate that machine. If it was a forklift and you're forklift certified and you're forklifting drunk, should your driver's license be impinged? No. Should your forklift certificate be revoked? Yes. Like, that's common sense in my mind, but...
Common sense is not very common.
Yes, unfortunately. So the Innocence Project, notable success stories was Robert DuBoise, which we talked about, exonerated after 37 years in prison. Anthony Wright from Pennsylvania was freed after 25 years. DNA pointed to the real perpetrator. And somebody named Yusef Salam and the exonerated 5. They weren't exonerated through DNA evidence through the Innocence Project directly, but their case amplified the organization's early influence. The Innocence Project receives thousands of letters each year from inmates seeking help, and each case is rigorously screened to assess whether DNA testing could prove innocence. They work pro bono with local attorneys, investigators, and forensic experts. So if they take your case, you're not going to be out any money, because if you're Robert DuBoise, you likely don't have any money because you've been in there for 37 years. You could probably send them a pack of smokes or a Chico stick or something from the commissary.
To get commissary, you have to work.
Yeah.
It'd be hard. If you were arrested at 18 and thrown in prison, it'd be a very hard time. At least if you were older and you had a trade, you could get on a work crew. And you can make, not like regular income that we would think of, but you have a certain amount of income, a certain amount of protection.
Yeah.
But you get arrested at 18, you got no skills. Like,
No.
you're not useful to the prison other than just to be monitored.
Yeah. Yep. So Robert DuBoise lost 37 years because of bad science and bad faith testimony. He gained freedom through the power of DNA and perseverance. Legal reform is something that is needed in a lot of municipalities. You can get involved with them, the Innocence Project, at innocenceproject.org. And you can push for scientific integrity in courtrooms. If you're ever called for jury duty, you can certainly look into jury nullification. And you don't always have to believe everything somebody who claims to be an expert says. The incident was August 18th, 1983. He was convicted in March 7th, 1985. He was exonerated September 14th, 2020. He did not plead guilty. He was Caucasian. The victim was Caucasian. He was exonerated by DNA. The perpetrator was later identified, in this case, the perpetrators. And the evidence at issue was the bite mark analysis. I've got a few more details about the victim if you got cigar left. I got maybe 2 inches, 2.5.
Oh, you're way behind me. I was trying to slow down, but yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit more about the victim, because we talked a lot about the victim of justice, but we didn't talk a lot about the actual victim. So Miss Grams worked at the Hot Potato restaurant in the shopping center about 2 miles from where her body was discovered. A coworker told police that herself and Mrs. Grams had closed up just after 9 p.m. the night before, and Mrs. Grams lived not far from where her body was found, as she often walked home along the busy Buffalo Avenue. 2 friends told investigators they saw her walking along North Boulevard at 9:30 p.m., just a few blocks from her house, but by then several blocks south of the dental office. That led police to believe that she might have decided to get a pack of cigarettes at one of the convenience stores clustered at the intersection of Buffalo Avenue and North Boulevard. At the crime scene, police found several pieces of 2x4 lumber with blood and hair attached, and then police believe that those were the murder weapons. Detective Philip Salandino, the lead investigator, also noted a white circle on a finger of Mrs. Graham's left hand that appeared to be a ring mark. No ring was found, and witnesses would later give conflicting statements about what type of ring Mrs. Grams wore and whether she was wearing a ring on the night she was murdered. Police also collected fingerprints from a nearby air conditioner and from Mrs. Grams' wallet. Dr. Lee Miller, the Hillsborough County Medical Examiner, performed the autopsy on August 20th. He concluded that Mrs. Grams died from blunt force trauma to the head, most likely around 11:30 p.m. on August 18th. He collected materials for a rape kit as well as hair, blood, and fingernail scrapings. In addition, he collected vaginal samples of what he called a white fluid. Dr. Miller would later testify that he noticed what he believed to be a bite mark on Mrs. Graham's left cheek as he was washing the blood from the young woman's face. He stopped his washing and then swabbed the area with a saline solution to potentially collect saliva that might have been left by her attacker. Dr. Miller summoned Dr. Richard Powell, a local dentist who had been listed as a forensic odontologist by Dr. Miller's office, although Dr. Powell was not certified in this specialty. This would be Dr. Powell's first consultation in a criminal case. He took a Polaroid photo of the mark and told Dr. Miller that it might be someone missing upper front teeth, specifically a left front incisor. Dr. Powell said he could see tear marks in the skin. He opined that the 6 lower teeth of that person who left the bite mark had no gaps. A few days later, Dr. Miller removed a section of Mrs. Graham's cheek and placed it in formaldehyde, which caused the tissue to shrink by about 10%. The Tampa police then reached out to Dr. Soviron, a dentist in Coral Gables, Florida, who was a leading forensic odontologist, which we talked about. And he advised the detective to use beeswax to make bite mark impressions from potential suspects. And these molds would then be filled with a composite to make a hard cast that could be compared against the photograph of Mrs. Graham's cheek. So it sounds like super sketch to begin with. We've got a Polaroid photo of a potential bite mark, and somehow these beeswax castings are going to do it. But as part of this process, the original beeswax mold was destroyed, and the detective had access to beeswax because the police captain was a beekeeper. I guess that's a good enough reason,
Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me?
It's so, fucking dude.
Dude, I know it's easy to judge the Polaroid thing from our perspective because the Polaroids look like shit. But it looked great to them. It did. Now I see photos that my parents took of their early life. And it's
Yes.
grainy. It's really hard to see.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can't even see what their T-shirts have on them.
No, I know. It's definitely a thing. So there was a report that stated that the detective and other officers might have created as many as 100 beeswax molds from potential suspects. So this Dr. Soviron came to Tampa September 8th of 1983 and examined the tissue that Dr. Miller had preserved in formaldehyde, which was now shrunk by 10%. Like Dr. Powell, Dr. Soviron said police should look for a suspect with a missing tooth or a large gap between his teeth or a tooth turned to the side. Very early in the investigation, Detective Saladino talked with a woman who had worked at a convenience store near the dental office for a few weeks in February 1983. She didn't recognize Mrs. Grams, but told Detective Saladino about several people who caused problems at the store. She knew their names only as Ray, Robert, and Bo, but she directed the police towards a nearby house. It was vacant, but there was mail in the mailbox addressed to several people named DuBoise. Well, we still get mail for people that used to live at our address, so that's not really... that's not a necessarily
That's not a great indicator
conviction
at
level
all.
quality. Records check of the name turned up brothers Victor and Robert DuBoise. Robert was then 18 years old. He had 2 convictions for minor non-violent crimes and was on probation. On September 25th, Detective Saladino met with Robert DuBoise. Mr. DuBoise said he had heard Detective Saladino was trying to take bite mark impressions from everybody. He said he had nothing to hide and could prove he wasn't the guy that bit the girl. Well, that was his first fucking mistake. You never offer up stuff for free to the police, just as a general rule. Mr. DuBoise's parents told Detective Saladino that they believed both Robert and Victor were home on August 18th, but if they had gone out, it was to look for their sister, who was reported missing on August 16th. Robert had no gaps in his upper or lower rows of teeth and appeared to give agreed to give the detective a dental impression. Dr. Soviron received Robert DuBoise's cast from a beeswax mold in mid-October, and he told the detective that Robert DuBoise made the bite mark found on Miss Grams. So I don't understand, Mike. I just don't understand it. They said they were looking for somebody with a gap in their teeth or a missing tooth or a tooth turned sideways, and there were no gaps in Robert's. He wasn't missing any teeth. He didn't have any sideways teeth. At the time of Robert's arrest, a man named Claude Butler was also in Hillsborough County Jail, charged with kidnapping and armed robbery, plus other charges for probation violation and assault on law enforcement. If convicted, he faced the possibility of 2 life sentences. Both Mr. Butler and Mr. DuBoise had psychiatric issues, and they were both placed in the section of the jail for inmates with mental illness. In November of 1983, Mr. Butler approached Detective John Koonsman, to whom he had been provided information in the past. Detective Koonsman introduced Mr. Butler to Detective Saladino in January 1984. Mr. Butler told Detective Saladino that Mr. DuBoise had admitted that he, his brother Victor DuBoise, and a friend named Raymond Garcia had raped and murdered Mrs. Grams after she resisted when they tried to rob her. Victor and Mr. Garcia were never charged, and after giving a statement to assistant prosecutor on April 19th, 1984, Mr. Butler pled guilty to his own charges on May 14th, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. A second witness, Joanne Suarez, told police that Mr. DuBoise had said to her in August 1983 that he had killed someone. Mr. Suarez also said she might have seen Mr. DuBoise with a ring similar to the one worn by Miss Graham. So, none of this is... This is a lot of conjecture, right? Like, I'm not a lawyer, but this sounds like a lot of bullshit. How much more cigar do you have, Mike?
I am burning my fingers.
Okay.
I am burning my fingers.
All right. Do you want to go through the trial or in more detail?
Yeah. We can do the trial and then.
All right. Because we already talked about the exoneration a bit. Yeah. I don't want to go too much, but it was kind of nice to kind of go through it without all the details of the actual event and investigation and things, because we know now, as everybody who's followed this, like, we know he's innocent. We know it wasn't him. And so to go through this, we can have like the anger of those who know more than the people doing the investigation.
Righteous anger.
Yes, which we all need sometimes. All right, on February 25th, 1985, Robert DuBoise went to trial in Hillsborough County Circuit Court. Just 12 days earlier, another prosecution witness had emerged. Jack Andrew Skizowak told police he was living at the Peter Pan Motel at the time Mr. DuBoise was arrested. A few days before arrest, Jack, I'm just going to call him Jack. They call him Mr. Andrew Skuzawak, but I'm just going to call him Jack because that's easier. Said that he had seen Robert DuBoise at a party and that Robert DuBoise had said he was wanted for murder. which isn't necessarily a guilty thing. I mean, they made him give a beeswax mold of his teeth, right? Dr. Suviron testified that Robert DuBoise made the bite mark to a reasonable degree of dental certainty. During cross-examination, Dr. Suviron acknowledged that at a police chiefs conference in November 1984, he had declared, "If you tell me that is the guy that did it, I will go into court and say that is the guy that did it."
Say that again, Nate. Say that again. I want to hear that again for everybody listening.
Yes. Dr. Suviron said that at a police conference in November 1984, he himself declared, "If you tell me that is the guy that did it, I will go into court and say that that is the guy that did it." So stand-up day for science, everybody.
That is very scientific. Very scientific.
Now, again, and this isn't to let these assholes off the hook, but if you remember from the beginning, the Tampa area was under increasing pressure at the time to convict people quickly. Not that that makes it right. But again, I wanted to understand the Tampa environment, political landscape a little bit, the what have you, right?
Well, culture is important. And
yeah, I mean, we have the benefit of hindsight, and they did not at the time. So, we also have the benefit of hindsight after 9/11, which we didn't have at the time. So, like you said, Mike, things change, new stuff comes out, technology. Dr. Norman Sperber, who's the chairman of the Bite Mark Guideline Committee for the American Board of Forensic Odontology, testified for the defense that Mr. DuBoise should be excluded as the source of the bite mark because there are too many inconsistencies between his teeth and the bite mark supposedly found on Miss Graham's cheek. No other forensic evidence tied Robert DuBoise to the crime scene. He, his brother, and Mr. Garcia were all excluded as the source of the fingerprints collected from the air conditioner and from Miss Graham's wallet. So remember, one of the other people in jail had said that Robert said they were trying to rob Miss Graham's, and then she resisted, so they raped and killed her. But if they were trying to rob her, why wouldn't they leave their own fingerprints on her wallet? Mr. Butler testified that Robert DuBoise had confessed his involvement, saying that he and Mr. Garcia and Victor were trying to rob Miss Graham's, but she fought back and then yelled out Mr. Garcia's name. A later investigation would show Miss Graham's and Mr. Garcia had no connection. Mr. Butler said Mr. DuBoise told him that they forced Miss Graham's into a car, drove around, then raped and killed her. Mr. DuBois' attorney tried to discredit Mr. Butler, introducing evidence of the wide range of psychiatric medicines Mr. Butler was taking while in jail. So remember, they were both put in the mental ward.
Very reliable source.
Yes. Detective Salandino testified he had never met Mr. Butler before Detective Koonsman made the introduction, but that was not true. A year earlier, Detective Salandino had been part of a sting operation that arrested Mr. Butler for burglary and related charges. Jack Andrew Squeezewicz, testified about his conversation with Mr. DuBoise. At the time of the trial, Jack also was preparing to be a prosecution witness in another murder trial, a case where there was a potential for him to be charged as an accessory. He was working closely with the state attorney's office on that case, and his emergence as a witness in Robert DuBois' trial came through prosecutors rather than a police investigation. This was not disclosed at trial, and he was never charged in connection with that separate murder. Miss Suarez gave limited testimony. She could not recall much of the events and said she suffered from traumatic brain injury. Mr. DuBois did not testify. His mother did and provided an alibi for the night of the murder. During closing arguments, prosecutor Mark Allen Ober pointed to the strength of forensic evidence and also vouched for Mr. Butler's credibility, telling jurors that Mr. Butler had received nothing for his testimony, despite not being charged later. On March 7, 1985, Robert DuBois was convicted of capital murder and attempted sexual battery. The jury recommended a life sentence, but Judge Harry Lee Coe III overrode that recommendation and sentenced Robert DuBois to death. Robert DuBois appealed. His attorneys argued, among other things, that the casts of his teeth made after his arrest were based on an illegal search. They also claimed that the use of any statements Mr. DuBois might have made to Mr. Butler was unconstitutional because Mr. Butler was acting as an agent for the state. Mr. DuBois also asserted that Judge Coe had abused his discretion when he overrode the jury's sentencing recommendation. 3 years later, the Florida Supreme Court rejected most of his claims on appeal.
So as is typical, there's multiple fuck-ups. The lawyer lied. Yeah. Clearly.
Yeah.
Shocking. I know that a lawyer lied.
Oh, man. Right?
Terrible.
Yeah, here we go. It does have a happy ending, though not as happy as you would have wished, Mike. So here we go.
How much did he get? How much did he get?
I know, I'm going to say that for the very, very end. August 26th, 2020, Warren's office filed a motion to reduce Robert DuBoise's sentence to time served. He was released from Hardy Correctional Institution that day. So this was after the Innocence Project did their stuff. But you still have to file a motion to let him out. You can't just say he's innocent. You still got to do all the paperwork, right? There's bureaucracy. September 10th, 2020, Robert DuBoise's attorneys filed a motion to vacate his conviction. Hillsborough County Circuit Judge Christopher Nash granted that motion on September 14th, 2020, and the charges were dismissed. So 4 days. That's pretty quick. They wanted to make this go away. October 2021, Robert DuBoise filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against the city of Tampa, police officers involved in the case, and Dr. Suviron. On August 4th, 2022, a grand jury in Tampa indicted Amos Robinson and Abraham Scott on murder charges in the death of Miss Grams and in the death of Linda Lanson, who had been murdered in 1983. The indictments were based in part on DNA evidence from Robert DuBoise's case. In April 2023, the Florida legislature approved a bill awarding Robert DuBoise $1.85 million in compensation. Governor Ron DeSantis signed the bill in June 2023.
That is not enough.
That is definitely not enough.
That is not enough. That is not even $100,000 per year he was in jail.
No, that is...
And I'll tell you right now, if I go to jail, I better get $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
You know, like, I just can't believe that's just not enough.
Yeah. That is a paltry amount. I mean, especially accounting for inflation and all that shit. Like, that's definitely not enough. For 37 years.
The 37 years of your life that you use to build the part of his life he's entering now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's foundational time. Like, you need cash to rebuild, to even get close to having a normal existence at some point.
Yeah. And he's lived in Florida his whole life, and Tampa. The housing market is not cheap. You probably can't even buy a house in Tampa for that.
Probably not. I mean, I don't even know how far that would go renting.
Well, yeah.
And then
I have no
the associated
idea.
costs of being alive and
having no skills.
He's got to go to school. He's got no skills. He's got to go to school to be able to go to school. And then what you have, now you're 60 and you're trying to find your first job ever.
Yeah.
Like, that's like
good luck.
That's what I mean. Like, you need enough money to not work again because it's over.
Yeah.
Like, the search is over.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I mean, at least it's something, I guess, right? But that's a crazy low amount.
It certainly isn't enough. I'm like borderline on the edge of putting it on a roach clip.
Oh, yeah.
My hand hurts from the heat.
Yes. I've got a little bit left, but we can be done because you're done. I gave this one a 5. What did you give it, Mike?
I also have to give it a 5.
It's got to be done.
I considered putting it on a roach clip to smoke the last part.
Yeah. Well,
mostly because of the show. Yeah, mostly because of the show. But it was good. The first half was better than the second half. About a quarter of the way in, it got a little sour, and I slowed her down. Okay. And then it became very strong, way stronger than it was before.
Sure.
Very high nicotine. It all came in and finished really well. Smoked it slow and low for that last quarter, and it really, really developed. Great cigar. Can't recommend it enough.
But I smoked it slow the whole way through because I was talking, right? So it was
right, and that changes
really
your perspective on it for sure.
But yeah, definitely one to smoke a little slower than other cigars you might smoke. But I really liked it. I really recommend it. Check out the Innocence Project as well. Even if you don't have someone that you think is wrongfully convicted, just check them out. They do good work, and they've got all their stories and things on there, and you can get profiles and details of all the people they've helped to exonerate. Otherwise, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Be safe, have fun.